Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journey, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2023. And that brings us to a title which has been released by Criterion this year, designated at spine number 1187. And it is a work which is described as being from the year 1992. And the name of the filmmaker is Carl Franklin. And the name of the work is One False Move. This is the work, the electrifying, amazing work, suspenseful, intense work, dramatic work, which is described as being from the year 1992. And this is written by Billy Bob Thornton and Tom Epperson, and it is directed by Carl Franklin. And so it's wonderful to get a work which is, well, and also the cast too. What an electrifying cast, included in which are, for example, Bill Paxton and Cinda Williams and Billy Bob Thornton and Michael Beach and others. What a combination they all bring to the table here in this film, which is again co-written by Billy Bob Thornton and also featuring Billy Bob Thornton as an actor. So it's great to have that aspect of the Criterion Collection Physical Media Catalog edition, as well as another film directed by another great film directed by the great director Carl Franklin. This is wonderful. This is the film from 1992, which is One False Move. Wow, One False Move. What a thrilling and scary and surprising film that serves in many ways like a real great example of American independent cinema from the late 80s, early 90s. It serves as this road movie. It serves as an uneasy, quote unquote, buddy film. It's this in many ways, it's a type of cops and robbers dynamic. It is about two sides of the law. It is also, in many ways, a type of noir film and or even a Western film and a highly dramatic film. And so there are many things that I think can apply to this film and the greatness that it is, because it has so many, I think, applications and so many entry points. And it's lean and mean, and it's unforgiving in a lot of ways, and there are many twists, and the twists and the shocks and the surprises come in the form of how the characters interact with each other, as well as the bursts of intensity, the threat of violence, and the showdown or showdowns that we think might occur, and that raises the level of anticipation and suspense in our minds and our hearts as we proceed, we the viewers proceed from beginning, middle, all the way to the end, and everything along the way is great and absorbing and really captures the attention so remarkably. This is the film which is One False Move. I'm so excited for this film that is now in the Criterion Collection Physical Media Catalog. And to make maybe a few more remarks going forward, I think if we were to try to focus in on the plot or story structure of this film, One False Move, I think we could, as I alluded to a little bit just now, consider the characters. And we do have essentially two camps, two groups of characters. Both are each on the different sides of the law. So we have, let's say, one group of characters that we kind of meet from the get-go immediately. And this is the characters that are, this is Ray and Pluto and Fantasia. They are portrayed by Billy Bob Thornton and Michael Beach and Cinda Williams respectively. And we see from the get-go, really, almost right out of the gate that they are, for lack of a better phrase, up to no good, really. They carry out these cruel acts and acts of intensity. There is the suggestion of violence that's carried out, I think, cinematically with a great degree of, say, style and restraint, but also the suggestion is there of the horrific acts that are occurring. So the scenes are set immediately in terms of how far and to what extremes these characters are willing to go. Pluto, Ray, and Fantasia are willing to go in order to achieve their ends. And we also see that their ends involve money, involve drugs, and also involve some kind of quest or journey that is taking them from Los Angeles to Arkansas, to other parts of the country, and there are some very special places, or there are very important places that we understand are maybe identified again almost immediately, that are part of this journey, part of this quest, Star City, etc. And so it becomes, in that sense, a road movie from one coast into, in many ways, their homes or their pasts. And this also leads to an exploration into the power dynamics of this trio of characters. Ray and Pluto, for example, Billy Bob Thornton's character, Michael Beach's character, for example. What kind of power dynamic do they have? What is their past? What is their relationship? How do they know each other? Is their friendship or alliance or partnership a smooth one, or is there a bit of unease or disquiet or some kind of tension there? Is it maybe one character having a certain degree of power over the other, psychological influential sway over the other? Is that Ray via Pluto, or is it Pluto via Ray? Again, we slowly but surely get to know these characters, and we as viewers get a sense of this as we move along towards the film's climax. And also the same is true for Fantasia. What is the relationship dynamic between Fantasia and Ray? And what is the sway or influence or psychological influence that one character may have over the other? The same is true for Pluto and Fantasia. What is the psychological dynamic that one character may have over the other? What is their relationship? How do those sets of say power play dynamics and relationships, how do they interact with each other? Is there tension? Is there some kind of triangle? Is there the threat of betrayal, etc.? What is going on, especially with the high stakes that are occurring with the crimes that are being committed and being on the run, and the intensity of the situation which we see them causing along the way. But again, intense situation leads to further intense situation, leads to further intense situation as they are on the run, on the road, in this way, a type of road movie from one point of the country to the other, with Star City seeming to be a very key, or one of the key monuments or locations or destinations that this trio seem to be heading towards. And what does that mean in terms of getting to know these characters and what their pasts are, and what it is, or what were the circumstances that brought them to where they are right now? And that's part of the mystery, and that's part of, say, the pursuit, if you will. And speaking of mystery and pursuit, I mentioned that this film is structured essentially, or one of the ways to look at the structure is thinking about this through the viewfinder of two groups of characters. The other group of characters would be those on the side of law enforcement, and we have a type of sort of big town slash small town law enforcement dynamics, and this is brought to the fore by the characters portrayed by Jim Metzler and Earl Billings, and then also portrayed by Bill Paxton, who is Dale Dixon, Hurricane. And so he is a law enforcement in a sort of small town, and when sort of he gets wind of the situation, that there is this essentially countrywide hunt for these criminals, and he sees that this is a higher profile case. He realizes that this becomes quote unquote an important case for him, for Dale, for Hurricane, and he becomes very excited, almost like a little kid, excited that his heroes, his lifelong heroes in law enforcement, have come and accepted him, or seem to have accepted him, to be part of the investigation, because where he is apparently one of the clues that law enforcement believes will bring them to encounter these criminals on the run. And so Bill Paxton's character is set up in this way. There is a seemingly almost quote unquote innocence or innocent charm about him, almost a nobility that's set up even when he is put down, even when he is made fun of. There is almost I don't want to say naivete, because he's very aware of his surroundings, but he wears it in a way that is very noble and very dignified, while also revealing and hiding certain aspects of his own background and character and, say, personality that may or may not hold some links to the other side of the coin, namely the trio of criminals that seem to, for one reason or another, be on a collision course with Dale, Hurricane, and others. So, and what are the secrets that will be revealed? Who will win out in the end? What will the stakes be? What will the consequences of this collision course be? Because it has a potential for being a very intense collision course indeed. If what we see from the very opening of the film has any indication, we are in for a very intense ride indeed. And again, throw into the mix ideas and aspects about, say, the journey, about going home, about this idea of going home against the backdrop of very, I think, scenes of type of Americana. There are scenes of family life and very different and very interesting aspects of family life through different lenses, depending on the characters that we upon which the family life context is based. There's also aspects of law enforcement, communication, miscommunication. Quote unquote, the small town niceties, end quote, that also reveal and showcase real sensibilities and awareness of surroundings, such as to have a certain importance and crucial factor with regard to the plot and moving the plot forward and finding clues and discovering the meanings of clues, as well as giving the world this sense of life and breadth and scope and respect and meaning that I think gives the film One False Move. I think its wholeness and its qualities of say becoming so maybe it becomes accessible to the viewer, and in that way it has a collision course aspect, and so it has this idea of a Western genre. The quote-unquote heroes and the quote-unquote villains may or may not collide in the climactic showdown. Will that happen or won't it happen? You have to watch the film to find out. And it's also, as I say, maintaining its tension by virtue of the fact that we have such great performances of these actors giving it their all in their own ways, and giving their characters such life. I mean, I've mentioned the characters portrayed by Bill Paxton, Hurricane, who has this sense of charm and sweetness about his almost affable nature that may or may not be hiding something else. And so Bill Paxton does such a great job of layering in that performance so well. And then we have the trio of criminals on the run, as it were. Cinda Williams' Fantasia is such a complex character, and in many ways a type of central figure whose motivations are what in many ways get the balls rolling in terms of the plot, as well as how people react to her and what that results in terms of the way that the plot moves in various directions. So she is so central, and the performance showcases an intensity and a strong will, but also that those layers of vulnerability when things really become intense. I mean, there are moments of real intensity in that trio, the group of the trio, where something maybe intense happens, and she might be reacting to it. Fantasia might be reacting to it in a way that might show shock and regret and even fear. But then there might be other moments when the opposite is the case. Maybe people are reacting in terms of regret and fear and shock towards what she is doing or what she might be perceived to be doing, etc. So the tables get turned so quickly and almost on a dime, and the characters not only keep up, but they really command the situation. I think Cinda Williams' performance here really does so much in commanding that situation so well. Brilliant stuff indeed. And speaking of the others in that trio, Billy Bob Thornton and Michael Beach. Oh my goodness, what an uneasy alliance, again brought forth so vividly by their performances, the close-ups on their faces, and we see and we get a sense of maybe the volatility of one over the other, but maybe as things progress we realize that maybe the other was the more dangerous one, end quote. And so there is this uneasy sense of something might happen unexpectedly at any moment. And so reading the situation, Billy Bob Thornton's performance and Michael Beach's performance, they each bring their own respective traits and qualities of their characters to the table. And they have similarities, but they are so distinctly and uniquely and individually rendered and represented and delineated in a way that's so remarkable. And so they are their own characters, and they operate very well, or perhaps very uneasily, as the case may be, in terms of their performances and their characters. So bravo, bravo, well done. And it's again brought to fruition with a great sense of style and wit and cleverness in terms of the dialogue and the layering of dialogue and the scene structure. And so kudos to the screenplay and the writing of this, and then under the direction hand of Carl Franklin. And what a brilliantly paced film this is. It has moments of tenderness and a type of delicacy, which is necessary for those intense dramatic moments of the film. And the quiet moments too are very important, but then there are some moments that are so quiet and then suddenly something slips and it becomes so intensely different immediately. And there's something about how those scenes keep up a certain pace of tranquility, but under that layer of tranquility there is an unease. There is a feeling of this discomfort. And I think that's held together so well in terms of the tension and calmness, almost within the same beat, which is, I think, a very difficult thing to achieve. And it's done so well by everyone concerned. And then Carl Franklin here as the director, guiding this, bringing this through to fruition, making it into a real, and realizing it into this film the way that he does. What an achievement this is. One False Move is one of the great classics. It's one of the great American classics from the 1990s, and in many ways it launched so many things when it was first released. I remember when it was first released, it seemed to come out of nowhere, and it just landed, and it became this huge phenomenal thing, and it was really praised and heralded, and it was given so much attention that when it came time to be able to watch this again, when I was able to, around the time of its release, I wasn't able to see it in the theater, but I saw it a little bit later on VHS. It was really quite stunning, and it felt like something that hadn't been seen before in the context of sort of the American crime film scene in the late 80s, early 90s. So it was and remains such a remarkable achievement. And it's so entertaining, so vast, and so intimate all at once. And again, it's a mystery. It's a film noir film. It's a Western film. It's a human drama. It's a road movie. It's a cops and robbers movie. It's maybe a police procedural film. And it's also a mystery film, and so much more. This is such an intense, brilliant work indeed, again, from the director Carl Franklin, and from 1992. It is this film, which is One False Move. The Criterion Collection has released this film, One False Move, on this 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo edition, and it is therefore 2 discs, and it is at spine number 1187, and so it is in this plastic casing, and I have here's what it looks like when you open it. The compartment, the stacked mechanism for the two discs here on this side, with this side housing the booklet or the fold out. I have one disc removed because in fact I have the 4K disc in the player right now behind me, and I've also removed, for purposes of today's discussion, the fold-out insert, which we'll talk about momentarily. Speaking of the fold-out, it has, among other things, notes about the master, or the transfer, or the restoration materials upon which this release by the Criterion Collection relies. So let me say about the master here, and I quote, "One false move is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.85 to 1. It was restored in 4K by Sony Pictures Entertainment. Scanning was completed by Roundabout Entertainment in Burbank, California, from the 35mm original camera negative. HDR color grading was completed by colorist David Bernstein at Roundabout Entertainment in Santa Monica, California. Digital restoration services were completed at Prasad in Burbank. The audio restoration and conform were conducted at Blue Wave Audio in Universal City, California, and sourced from the 35mm original 2.0 surround magnetic tracks. Restoration was supervised by Rita Belda for Sony Pictures Entertainment. Color was approved by director Carl Franklin. Please be sure to enable Dolby Pro Logic decoding on your receiver to properly play the Dolby 2.0 surround soundtrack on the 4K Ultra HD disc, The feature is presented in Dolby Vision HDR high dynamic range. On the Blu-ray, it is presented in high definition SDR, standard dynamic range. So I had the great opportunity to be able to watch this Criterion disc, or the discs, the 4K UHD disc and the Blu-ray disc. Again, based upon this master, again, the details of which are as I've read them out here. And I didn't watch them on this TV. I watched them actually in another TV. We have another room in this house, which is a slightly bigger TV with a little bit more sound capability. So in order to be able to try to watch it in regards to the sound capability and the picture quality, and just to see what this release had to offer. And so I must say that I think that this is a film that I don't have that much experience in terms of knowledge of the release history of this. So I don't have any previous releases of this on physical media. As I mentioned, I have seen it a number of times, but I've never seen it in the theater. So my experience with the film in terms of the presentation history and the release history, or the version history, is very limited indeed. So I apologize for my limited experience. But I do recall just how I felt when I did see it for the first time. But this is, for me, just it feels head and shoulders above anything I've been able to see before. And so this looks to me so wonderful, and this will be my go-to default in terms of when I decide to revisit this film in the future. I will go to the Criterion disc until there might be some future release that may compete in terms of quality. Until that happens, I will go with the One False Move Criterion release. And I find that there are many scenes of sunlight and shadow. There are many scenes of scenes happening at night and in darkness and outside. And so those scenes need to have a certain sense of, say, depth of shadow and darkness. Put it, again, in my very maybe incomplete or non-technical terms. So whenever I saw this, say, if I saw it, or if I remember in past, rental watches or other watches of the like, I'd always remember those scenes of darkness, and there was a little bit of a type of I don't want to say flatness, but there would always be this sense of a type of well, yes, for lack of a better phrase, a type of flatness that would maybe unintentionally lighten up some of those darkened, shadowed moments. Well, when I watched the Criterion release, those moments, I think, feel the flatness for me is gone, and there is a real almost it feels almost three-dimensional in terms of the way that those shadows and dark scenes and outdoor nighttime scenes and the night scenes really operate. And those are really important too, because sometimes you'll have lights flashing, and sometimes you'll see spotlights, or suddenly going indoors into, say, a gas station or something, and coming out. So those scenes, again, they operate so well, and that flatness, I think, is removed. But there's also a retaining or preservation of what I want to call a type of 90s aesthetic, the way that the light seems to hit. I mean, it's not overly, well, I don't want to say, there is a type of, lack of a better phrase, a type of 90s filter. It feels very timely and dated, which I think is very good. It needs to have that dated quality to remind me of the fact that it is from the 90s, or from the late 80s, early 90s feel. And you get that in the way that, say, speaking of outdoor scenes, sunlight hits the characters' faces, or the way in which maybe it shines through lights, or even kitchen scenes, and how those are lit. I love how, or even scenes in restaurants, or diners, etc., or even in cars as well. And that type of aesthetic, I think, shines through. So there's no artificial, say, touch up that brings the image out of its 90s aesthetic, which I'd really admire. So there's a type of fidelity or preservation at play, while maintaining the sense of depth and shadow, which I really appreciate very much. So I think, all in all, again, I apologize for my really poor technical maybe incapabilities here, but the point I want to raise here is that, again, um, I detect no, say, straying away from type of fidelity from the work, but I still feel that its enhancements really bring out the enhancements of tension and psychological impact that I think the film inherently holds. So I'm very, very pleased with how this looks and sounds, courtesy of this release by the Criterion Collection. And so let's turn now to what is included as far as the special features are concerned. So the first thing is, well, I should point out too, that this film is, again, provided on the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo offering, and that's what I have here on the table. And so that means there are two discs, the 4K UHD disc and then the Blu-ray disc. What I have, you can watch the film on either disc, so it's your choice depending on what it is you're looking for, and the equipment that you have and the like. So, so what I have here in the machine for now is the 4K UHD disc. So you can watch the film, and on either disc, when you watch the film, you can also have the choice of watching it with the commentary track. And so for the 4K UHD disc here, I have the notes here, or the submenu, which goes to the commentary track. And it says, this commentary track with director Carl Franklin was recorded in 1999. And so this is a commentary track which has been carried over from 1999. And so it's wonderful opportunity to listen to this again for those who have listened to it already, or for the first time for those who have not. And so and it's great. It really is great. It's not dated. It feels fresh. It feels like it was recorded yesterday, and it's so filled with information and invigorating. And Carl Franklin has this wonderful way of speaking, and has a type of welcoming air, also very erudite, and so charming and affable. It's really great. So and we also get a little sense of Carl Franklin speaking in one of the other supplements too, which we'll talk a little bit later. But here's Carl Franklin's director commentary, and it's brilliant. So some things that he speaks here is, for instance, he speaks about the use of music. And this is evident, again, from the very beginning with the opening titles and the musical cues and the instrumentation that was employed. And then he also speaks a little bit later about how there were choices that he made to maybe withdraw the music and rely on silence, or maybe use music, try to bring it more into the background, but give a type of percussion quality to it, and withdrawing a type of theme, and bringing the theme out into the musical score or soundtrack a little bit later in a very key moment. So I thought that was really, really profound, because the music does occur, but I also when I think about it, there are great, wonderful musical moments, and then there are moments too where the sounds and the silence really carry the emotion and the drama and the impact of the scene in question. So that's really interesting in terms of what Carl Franklin says about that aspect. And then also speaking about working with Billy Bob Thornton, who is the writer or one of the writers, and he is also an actor. And so Carl Franklin mentions this maybe before really starting to work on the film and working with Billy Bob Thornton, maybe he was expressing a little bit of reservation in terms of what this would mean, and because what would it mean for a director to be working with the writer on the set as they were making the film. But Carl Franklin reveals that Billy Bob Thornton had none of that air, there was none of that pretense, and Billy Bob Thornton was very willing to see certain scenes maybe rewritten maybe at the last minute, as it were, and he was very supportive of that. And sometimes there would be new, fresh ideas that could emerge. And so Carl Franklin was had this really, I think, easy going working relationship with Billy Bob Thornton, and so that was really good. It had this great professional, collaborative aspect, which he expresses. And also Billy Bob Thornton, as Carl Franklin remarks here, he was saying that Billy Bob Thornton had always wanted to try acting, and so he said to Carl Franklin, this is your film as a director, and I'm now an actor, so I'm wearing my actor hat. So that also was a type of signal given to Carl Franklin to say that he was in control and he had the means to produce this or to direct this in the way, because he was the director, and that Billy Bob Thornton would respect that. So, and also work to support that where needed. So I thought that was really great and lovely anecdote. And also anecdotes about Cinda Williams, and there was an off-screen relationship between Billy Bob Thornton and Cinda Williams around the time of this film as well. So that might have shown through in terms of the intensity of some of their scenes together, and the intimate relationship between Ray and Fantasia. That relationship is one of the key ones, and so I think Carl Franklin refers to this a little bit throughout the commentary track. And also the friction, I mentioned this as well. Michael Beach brings that ominous, eerie quality that may or may not be sitting well with Ray and Fantasia, Billy Bob Thornton's character and Cinda Williams' character. And so the friction of the camps and the the collision aspect, excuse me, although maybe collusion as well in a certain manner of speaking. And also he speaks too of what could be referred to as a type of inverted structure. It is a journey film, but it's a journey that arguably starts in Los Angeles and ends up in, its destination is Star City. And so it's an interesting flip on the structure, because one would expect perhaps the opposite, going from the small town to the big city, Los Angeles, but the inverted is the case, going from the big city to the small town. And that allows for this type of look into the past. That also allows for this comparison between the small town environment, again with the hurricane or Dale at the center of that, and then the big city, say law enforcement movements, etc., with the criminals on the road being pursued, as it were. So I think that's really quite fascinating. So for these and other reasons, Carl Franklin's commentary track from '99 being carried over here by Criterion, or being able to be carried over here thanks to this Criterion release. This is wonderful. Once again, when you watch it on the 4K or when you watch it on the Blu-ray, you'll still get the option either way to watch the film with the commentary track with director Carl Franklin. And my goodness, it's so great. So please, if you haven't already, please listen to this commentary track. It is amazing. It's amazing. And now what I've done is I have switched the discs. So what I have in the player now is the 4K disc. So here, I'm sorry, what I have in the player now is the Blu-ray disc. Excuse me, the Blu-ray disc is now in the player, and I've put in the case here the 4K disc. So if you recall, the Blu-ray disc, which I showed a little bit before, has a little bit of a different look than the 4K disc right here. So that's also an interesting little touch. I like when Criterion and other labels as well put in those little details for the physical media aspect of this. So there's some slight differences in terms of the way that the disc look discs look, but that's really cool. But in any event, here we go, the Blu-ray, and as you can see, the menu looks similar. I think pretty identical here, and but there are some differences between the Blu-ray and the 4K disc, and those differences come in the availability on the Blu-ray, not on the 4K disc, but on the Blu-ray of the two other supplements that are part of this release, One False Move. I should point out that there is no supplements menu. There's no word in the menu that says supplements. It just goes from movie, then chapters, then commentary, which is what we spoke about a moment ago, and then it goes into Carl Franklin and Billy Bob Thornton, trailer, subtitles. So that's curious. We'd seen this in a couple releases, other releases by Criterion before. There's no supplements menu. There's no word supplements that you click on and it goes to a sub menu when it would take you to these to the supplements in question. So I'm not sure what the reasoning behind that is. I don't. It's not. I don't hold. I don't hold any strong opinion either way as to what I prefer. Do I prefer to see the word supplements, or do I prefer to see the actual supplements here as well? I don't mind either way, but I think it does suggest, implicitly at least, that there is on paper low quantity of supplements. I mean, we do get the commentary track, but we also get, apart from that, this discussion and then the trailer. So in terms of quantity, it might seem low, especially when compared to other Criterion releases or even non-Criterion releases now that seem to be stacked with a lot of things. But at the end of the day, it always comes down to not how many things are there per se, but what the quality is. I mean, you can have a release that I'm speaking very, very generally here. So, but one can have a release that conceivably could have a lot of supplements. On paper it has, say, 10 supplements or something, but you watch them, they might not always be so good. So, or the opposite might be true. You might have a stacked group of supplements and they all might be excellent. So that's always the goal. That's always the hope. And so I think the inverted is true as well. On paper, if you have a low number of supplements in terms of quantity, then it really rides on how high quality those supplements are, as low in quantity and number as they may be. So let's see what this holds. So I should say off the bat that I think these supplements are really great. I would have liked to have seen maybe a couple more. Maybe one or two, that would have been cool. Maybe a discussion, or maybe a critical analytical essay, video essay, maybe some more introduction into the world of Carl Franklin, Billy Bob Thornton, etc. Maybe some comments from Cinda Williams and the like. So that would have been really fantastic. But in any event, what we do get is, the first thing we do get is Carl Franklin and Billy Bob Thornton. And it says, in this conversation, recorded for the Criterion Collection in 2022, director Carl Franklin and co-writer actor Billy Bob Thornton discussed their early careers, Thornton and Tom Epperson's screenplay, and the casting and production of One False Move. This is approximately 27 minutes, and it's Carl Franklin and Billy Bob Thornton sitting across from each other in this sort of maybe room or studio-like setting, and it's Criterion. It looks to be a Criterion-produced supplement here. This is great. This is really, really great. And Billy Bob Thornton talks about the early beginnings of the writing, again, his collaboration with Tom Epperson, some of the early ideas for the titles. He mentions possibilities for titles before One False Move came up, which was Color Me Bad, Hurricane, and others. But then when the title came up and when the film was released with the title One False Move, he says, oh, it couldn't have been any other title. It was perfect. So that's interesting. And talking too about what the genesis of the film was, and Billy Bob Thornton and Tom Epperson's interactions with LAPD or law enforcement, and stories that they heard from law enforcement that formed the genesis of these stories, a couple stories that really were combined or linked together to form the backbone of One False Move, and how Carl Franklin entered the picture. And they were really impressed. The producers were really impressed, and the writers were really impressed with Carl Franklin's approach in short film. And then They speak to about Carl Franklin speaks to about what he wanted in his visions for, say, casting choices, how Bill Paxton was their top choice early on, but it might have taken a little bit of convincing, and so maybe they had to look at other actors as well. This was mentioned too a little bit in the commentary track by Carl Franklin, the 99 commentary track. But here it's embellished a little bit more. They actually mentioned that some of the other actors that were considered or were maybe approached were people like Jeff Daniels for the role of Hurricane, or Tim Robbins. But they do mention that Bill Paxton was their first choice, and it worked out so well. I mean, you just see the performance and what Bill Paxton brings, and this warmth and complexity that he brings. It's just so brilliant. So. And then there's this idea of the obliqueness and the backstories of these characters, what is revealed, what isn't revealed, and some of the quirky choices that are made, and even details of violence and violent scenes, what quirky choices were made and why, or maybe it was on a whim, and just make it that even more idiosyncratic to make it more memorable. I think those are great things. So this is a really, really lovely 27 minutes, so about a half an hour discussion between the two artists. And you get a sense of the mutual respect. Carl Franklin asks Billy Bob Thornton some questions, and Billy Bob Thornton asks Carl Franklin some questions. So it has this lovely back and forth as well. And it's a great reminder, too, of, again, they also mentioned, too, how this film, One False Move, really launched the careers of so many people. So, and it was such a huge deal when it was released. I can't stress this enough, just how big a deal this was. And it, again, you'd see trailers and people critics talking about it, national TV critics talking about it on TV. And this was before the internet. This was before, and here I am in the early 90s, well, much younger than I am now. And so, but I'm still hearing about this release of a film, One False Move, and it was huge. And there were certain choices in terms of a marketing campaign and release strategies that really, I think, all the circumstances, all the stars were aligned, in a manner of speaking. It became this huge, phenomenal thing that it was and still is. So, kudos to Carl Franklin and Billy Bob Thornton for this great conversation, 27 minutes. And then we have the second of the, I guess, the supplements beyond the commentary track is the trailer. And this is a great 90s trailer. Oh, it's so great. You watch these trailers and, oh, this is like what I saw, whatever it was on say the front ends or the back ends of a VHS tape when I'd rent it, or maybe something like this you'd watch maybe on TV or something. Oh, this is great. So the trailer, it has this great, it's oozing 90s style. So it's wonderful. So there's that to watch if you're interested. So again, that is it. Again, in terms of quantity, I do want to emphasize that the quality is quite high. That being said, I would have liked to have seen others. It would have been great to have seen other things. One or two other discussions would have been fantastic, maybe a video essay or discussion of the works of Carl Franklin or Billy Bob Thornton, comments from Cinda Williams or something, and maybe some of the other members of the crew, collaborations and artists. That would have been really wonderful. We don't get that. So for some, this might seem like a critical point to make in terms of this Criterion release. That's fair. That's a very reasonable and legitimate point to make. But I do, again, want to emphasize that maybe despite such feelings, I don't want that to overshadow the real greatness of the conversation between the two artists here, as well as the inclusion of the 1999 commentary track, which has a lot of information, and then the film itself. So that is the state of things when it comes to the supplements included for the Blu-ray as part of the Criterion release. And so now let's take a look, to conclude this discussion, let's take a look at other aspects of this release. Just again, as I mentioned before, what I have here is the 2-disc 4K UHD plus Blu-ray combo plastic case release, and it has the 2 discs here, and I love the layout, taking what appear to be images or photos from the film, but if you look very closely, And again, I apologize for my very poor presentation skills. I hope you can forgive me here. But if you look very closely at this, you can see that it is an artist's rendering or drawing. It looks so photorealistic, but it looks to my eyes to be a drawing here, or an artistic reproduction of one of the key shots or looks, or a number of them anyway, superimposed in this way within the same shot, as a manner of speaking. So this is really cool. And then if you look closely too at the font that's used, you have the One False Move font, and there's a little bit of the some interesting aspects. Again, it's hard to see with the way I'm presenting this. I apologize, but maybe you can see it here. There's a little bit of dust, or maybe gunpowder. So that has that motif there, which is also a nice little carryover. And so you have this type of artistic rendering, but you also have photos or photo shots as well that are part of the inside fold out here. And so this is great. Let me point out that the art is art directors Sarah Habibi, Eric Skillman, illustration Vlad Rodriguez, designer Eric Skillman, art production coordinator William Boyle, art assistant Julie Sussman. So very, very interesting indeed. You know, sometimes Criterion has cover art design which seem to be mimicking or seem to be reproductions of, say, the poster art, or the commonly seen poster art, or maybe very famous shots from the film. This is, I think, a very famous moment or moments from the film. And you look closely, you see, oh, these are drawn by artists. And so I love little details like that. So I think, yes, to my eyes, I looked when I first saw this announced however many months ago it was, and I first saw this, you know, on the computer with the image. My eyes didn't notice it, but now that I look closely, I say, oh yes, this is an illustration. Wow, that's very cool indeed. So there's that aspect, plus the plastic casing aspect. And I mentioned here the fold out, and it is a fold out type. I'm not a fan of the fold out type. I would much rather preferred the staple booklet, or the hardbound, or the paper bound booklet type. But that's okay, because we do get, among other things, a great essay here. And let me see if I can show that. Lock Things Up. This is the essay by William Boyle. This is a great, well-written essay. It's far-reaching. It goes into the Carl Franklin's career and trajectory, Billy Bob Thornton, and Michael Beach and Cinda Williams in the context of the film, and thematic concerns of the film. Oh, this is wonderful. And Bill Paxton, of course. So this is really great. My strong suggestion is, like with other essays, my strong suggestion is please watch the film first, and then after you've seen the film, you can read this great essay that's included as part of this release. So that concludes, I think, my comments, yes, with regard to this Criterion release of One False Move. Again, while it would have been nice to have seen some supplements, extra supplements, what we do get is very, very high quality, as well as getting the 1999 commentary track, as well as the film itself, and a reminder of just how stunning, how really absolutely stunning this film is, from top to bottom, from start to finish. It grabs you and it never lets go. And when it shakes and turns, oh my goodness, you are in for a real ride. And it's a journey film, and a road film, and a mystery film, and so filled with a lot of heart and sadness and hope, as well as danger and risk, and things under the surface that are threatening to burst forth in ways that are maybe irreparable. But that's part of the tense action and drama of this world that's depicted here, which is the world of the film One False Move. All right, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great movies, including One False Move, including other works directed by Carl Franklin and beyond. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.